I still remember the exact words my wife screamed over the phone because they changed my life forever. You have exactly 1 hour to get your junk out of my house. I inherited $12 million this morning, and I don't need a loser like you dragging me down anymore. Then she hung up. No explanation, no hesitation, just years of marriage erased in less than 30 seconds. I stood in the parking lot of the construction site with my phone still pressed against my ear, surrounded by the sound of jackhammers and concrete mixers. My coworkers looked at me, wondering why I had suddenly gone pale. I wish I could tell you I cried. I wish I could tell you I begged her to reconsider. Instead, I looked at the black screen of my phone, smiled for the first time in months, and quietly whispered to myself, well, that makes everything much easier. When she finally came home that evening, expecting to find me broken, homeless, and begging for another chance, I looked her in the eyes, handed her the house keys, and said only 4 words. Good luck without me. The look on her face was priceless. But to understand why those words mattered so much, you need to know how I ended up marrying the woman who never truly loved me. My name is Ethan, I'm 34 years old, and for most of my life I believed that hard work could solve almost anything. My father taught me that. He was a mechanic who worked 12-hour shifts 6 days a week. My mother cleaned offices at night. We never had much money, but we always had dignity. Dad used to tell me, son, money comes and goes. Character stays. I believed him. After graduating with a degree in civil engineering, I landed a decent job with a construction company. I wasn't making millions, but I was earning enough to build a comfortable future. That's when I met Vanessa. She was beautiful. The kind of beautiful that made people stop talking when she walked into a room. We met at a coffee shop near my office. She smiled at me first. Only Elgin don't larged remained. I laughed and looked at the cup in my hand. No wonder it tastes so much sweeter than my usual coffee. She laughed. That laugh was enough to convince me to ask for her number. For the first year, everything felt perfect. She was funny, charming, affectionate, and always talked about building a future together. I don't care if we are rich, she would say while resting her head on my shoulder. As long as we are together. Funny how some promises expire the moment money appears. There were warning signs. I ignored every single one. Whenever we visited her parents, her mother constantly compared me to Vanessa's older sister's husband. You know, she'd say while pretending to smile, Michael just bought Emily a brand new Mercedes. Vanessa would glance at me. Then she'd sigh. Not once did she defend me. Instead, she'd quietly ask on the drive home, do you think we'll ever have that kind of life? I'd squeeze her hand. We will. Just give me time. Time. That became my favorite lie. Not because I wasn't trying, because nothing was ever enough. After we got married, everything changed. Vanessa quit her marketing job 6 months later. I'm tired of working, she announced one evening while scrolling through luxury vacation photos. I want to focus on myself. What does that mean? It means you'll take care of us. I blinked. I already do? No, she smiled. I mean completely. I should have argued. Instead, I picked up more projects. More overtime. Weekend inspections. Consulting work. I left home before sunrise and often came back after dark. I missed birthdays. I missed holidays. I even missed my best friend's wedding because I couldn't afford to turn down a contract. Every extra dollar went into our mortgage. Her savings. Her shopping. Her vacations with friends. Her expensive skincare. Designer handbags. Jewelry. Whenever I questioned the spending, she rolled her eyes. You make it sound like I'm wasting money. A $5,000 purse isn't exactly a necessity. You just don't understand quality. No. I understood sacrifice. She understood spending. Then there was her family. If there was an Olympic event for making one child feel worthless, her parents would have won gold medals. Vanessa's younger brother, Kyle, had never held a steady job longer than 4 months. He was 30 years old, still living at home, still borrowing money,
Still claiming he was working on a business idea.
his business ideas changed every month. Cryptocurrency, sports betting, luxury sneakers, energy drinks, podcasting. Nothing ever lasted. Yet, somehow he remained the golden child. Whenever Kyle needed money, everyone rushed to help. When I suggested he should maybe get a real job, Vanessa glared at me. He's finding himself. I found myself paying his credit card bill.
You're supposed to support family.
Funny how family always meant my wallet. One Christmas, Kyle crashed his brand new SUV after driving drunk. Instead of making him pay for another car, Vanessa asked me if I could help. Help how? Dad thinks maybe we could loan Kyle $20,000. I stared at her. Loan?
He'll pay it back.
When? When his business takes off. I laughed so hard I almost spilled my coffee. She didn't find it funny. You don't believe in him. I believe in employment. We argued for hours. Eventually I gave in. Not because I wanted to, because Vanessa cried. I can't believe you'd embarrass my family like this. So I transferred the money. Kyle never paid back a single dollar. Not one. Years passed. I worked harder. Vanessa complained louder. Nothing I achieved impressed her anymore. When I received a promotion to senior project manager, I came home excited.
I got promoted.
She barely looked up from her phone. That's nice.
My salary increased by 40,000.
Oh. The silence.
5 minutes later, she asked, "Can we finally renovate the kitchen?"
Not congratulations.
Not, "I'm proud of you."
Just another bill. Little by little, I realized something painful. My wife loved what I provided. Not who I was. Then came the moment everything began falling apart. One Friday evening, Vanessa invited her parents and Kyle over for dinner. The atmosphere felt strange. Everyone was unusually cheerful. Her father cleared his throat. "Ethan, we've been discussing something important." I already hated where this was going. Vanessa reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "We know how generous you are." That sentence alone cost me money every single time. Her mother smiled sweetly. "Kyle has an incredible investment opportunity." Of course he did. I leaned back. "How much?" Nobody answered immediately. Finally, Kyle grinned.
"Only 300,000.
I nearly choked on my drink.
300,000? It's guaranteed.
There is no such thing.
You just don't understand investing."
No, I replied calmly. I understand scams. Kyle slammed his hand on the table. "You've always looked down on me."
I look down on bad decisions.
Vanessa interrupted. "Ethan." "What?" "Just hear him out." "I've heard enough." Her father frowned. "You have savings. Those savings are for our future. We are family." I took a deep breath.
And because we're family, I'll give you advice for free.
Kyle smiled. Finally.
Don't invest in whatever this is.
His smile disappeared. Vanessa stood up.
I can't believe how selfish you're being.
I looked around the table. 4 people. All staring at me as if I were the villain. After years of paying bills, helping them, working overtime, sacrificing weekends, missing holidays. Somehow I was selfish because I refused to throw away $300,000. I pushed my chair back.
The answer is no.
Vanessa followed me into the kitchen. "You embarrassed everyone. I saved everyone. No, you embarrassed my family. Our savings aren't Kyle's personal ATM. She crossed her arms. You've changed. I laughed. No, I finally stopped saying yes. That night, she slept in the guest room. For the next 3 weeks, she barely spoke to me. The silent treatment, the guilt trips, the cold stares, everything became a weapon. Then something unexpected happened. Vanessa received a phone call while we were eating breakfast. At first, she looked confused, then shocked. Then she started crying. Real tears. What happened? I asked. She ignored me. She walked outside to continue the conversation. When she came back 20 minutes later, she wasn't crying anymore. She was smiling. Not a normal smile. The kind of smile people wear when they believe their entire life is about to change. She looked at me differently, as if I had suddenly become invisible. I asked, Vanessa, what happened? She slowly placed her phone on the kitchen counter. My great-aunt Elena passed away. I'm so sorry. She shrugged. We barely knew each other. Something about her tone bothered me. Then she added the sentence that would destroy our marriage. And apparently, she left me everything. I congratulated her. I had no idea that by the next morning, the woman I had spent years sacrificing everything for would make one phone call that changed both of our lives forever. The next morning, Vanessa woke up before I did. That alone was unusual. Normally, I'd already be dressed and halfway through my first cup of coffee before she even opened her eyes. But when I walked into the kitchen, she was sitting at the table in a silk robe, laptop open, talking to someone on a video call. The moment she saw me, she muted the microphone. We'll continue this later, she said before ending the call. Who was that? I asked. My attorney. I raised an eyebrow. Already? The estate lawyer wants to move quickly. I smiled. Well, that's good. Less paperwork. She didn't smile back. Instead, she studied me for a long moment. It felt like she was looking at a stranger. Over the next week, everything changed. She stopped asking how my day went. She stopped making dinner. She stopped pretending to care. Instead, she spent hours shopping online for luxury homes, designer furniture, and European vacations. One evening, I walked into the living room carrying takeout. Dinner's here. Without taking her eyes off her tablet, she replied, I'm not eating fast food anymore. I looked at the 2 bags in my hands. You asked me to pick this up. I changed my mind. So, what do you want? She shrugged. Maybe sushi from that place downtown. That's 45 minutes away. And? I stared at her. She stared right back. Finally, I set the bags on the counter. You know what? Eat whatever you want. For the first time in years, I took my own food, sat on the patio, and enjoyed dinner without apologizing for existing. It felt peaceful. A few days later, I came home early because one of my projects had been postponed. As soon as I stepped inside, I heard voices upstairs. Vanessa wasn't alone. I quietly climbed the stairs. Her bedroom door was slightly open. Inside were Vanessa, her parents, Kyle, and 2 people wearing expensive suits. Estate attorneys. I was about to knock when I heard Kyle laughing. So when do we finally get rid of him? Everyone laughed. Everyone. Even Vanessa. Her father spoke next. The moment the inheritance clears, Ethan becomes unnecessary. My chest tightened. One of the attorneys asked, has he signed any financial agreements recently? Vanessa shook her head. No, he's been surprisingly stubborn. Her mother rolled her eyes. He's always acted like he's smarter than everyone. Kyle grinned. Give him a few tears and he'll fold like always. Vanessa smirked. He won't have time. What do you mean? The second the money hits my account, I'm divorcing him. Silence. Then applause. Actual applause. Her mother stood up and hugged her.
I'm so proud of you.
I couldn't breathe. 8 years. 8 years together. Countless sacrifices. Thousands of overtime hours. And they were celebrating throwing me away like old furniture. Then came the sentence that hurt the most. Vanessa laughed. I honestly should have left years ago. I only stayed because he paid the bills. Every memory we shared shattered in that moment. I quietly walked back downstairs before anyone noticed me. I sat alone in the garage for nearly an hour. Not crying. Just thinking. You know what's strange? When you've been treated badly for so long, there's a moment when the pain simply stops. It's like flipping a switch. I wasn't heartbroken anymore. I was awake. That evening, Vanessa acted like nothing had happened.
How was work?
Fine. You seem quiet. I'm tired. She nodded without looking up from her phone. Perfect. Let her think I knew nothing. The next morning, I made 2 phone calls. The first was to my attorney. The second was to an old college friend named Daniel. Daniel and I had graduated together with engineering degrees. While I'd gone into construction management, he'd started a financial consulting firm. We hadn't spoken in months. Ethan, he laughed, to what do I owe the honor? I need a favor. Name it.
I need someone to look over every financial record connected to my marriage.
There was a pause. That's serious? Worse? Come by this afternoon. By the time I left Daniel's office that evening, I knew something Vanessa didn't. For years, she'd mocked me for being boring because I invested instead of spending. Every yearly bonus, every consulting check, every tax refund. I'd quietly invested them through a trust my late father helped me establish years before he died. The investments weren't in our joint accounts. They'd been made before our marriage and managed separately. Daniel smiled as he slid a folder across the desk.
I don't think you realize how disciplined you've been.
I opened it. My eyes widened. I thought there would be maybe 2 million. Daniel laughed. You've underestimated compound growth. I looked again. Just over $26 million. I blinked several times.
This has to be wrong.
It isn't. My hands trembled. All those weekends, all those sacrifices. Every dollar I'd invested instead of wasting. It had quietly grown into a fortune. Vanessa had absolutely no idea it existed. I leaned back in my chair. For the first time in months, I smiled. Not because I was rich, because I was free. Daniel looked at me carefully. So, what's the plan? I closed the folder. I wait. For what? For her to show me exactly who she is. He nodded.
Then don't interrupt someone making a mistake.
A week later, Vanessa's inheritance officially cleared. News spread through her family like wildfire. Her parents organized a huge celebration dinner at an upscale country club. Relatives flew in from different states. Friends she'd barely spoken to in years suddenly remembered her birthday. Funny how money has a way of creating long-lost relationships. Vanessa insisted I attend. You should come.
I thought you wanted to celebrate with your family.
I do. Then why invite me? She smiled. Oh, you'll see. Something about that smile reminded me of the meeting I'd overheard. I already knew what was coming. So I rented a tuxedo, pressed my shirt, polished my shoes, and showed up right on time.
The ballroom sparkled with crystal chandeliers and expensive champagne. Every table was decorated with fresh white roses. A giant banner read, "Congratulations, Vanessa, a new beginning."
New beginning. Interesting choice of words. People greeted me politely. Some genuinely liked me. Others barely acknowledged I existed. Dinner was lavish. Steak. Seafood. Wine that probably cost more than my first paycheck. Halfway through dessert, Vanessa stood and tapped her champagne glass.
"I'd like everyone's attention."
The room fell silent. She smiled confidently.
"I've been blessed with an incredible inheritance.
Applause erupted.
My life is entering a new chapter."
More applause. Then she looked directly at me. And unfortunately, here it comes. Some people belong in the past. The room became very quiet. She reached into her designer handbag, pulled out an envelope, walked toward me.
"I've already signed the divorce papers."
Gasps echoed around the room. She placed the envelope in front of me.
"I think it's time you accepted reality."
Everyone watched. Phones slowly appeared. People sensed drama. Kyle leaned back with the biggest grin I'd ever seen. Vanessa folded her arms.
"I've carried this marriage long enough."
I almost laughed. She continued. You've always been ordinary, Ethan. Every word dripped with arrogance. I deserve a better life, better people, better opportunities. Her mother clapped first. Then Kyle. Then several relatives joined in. It was surreal. They were applauding the public humiliation of the man who had spent years helping them. Vanessa smiled triumphantly. So, do you have anything you'd like to say before you leave my life forever? I looked down at the envelope, then back at her. I slowly stood, straightened my jacket, and smiled. The entire room leaned forward, waiting for me to break. Instead, I calmly accepted the papers and reached into my own briefcase.
"Actually," I said, "there's something all of you deserve to know."
Every smile in the room began to fade. I reached into my briefcase and slowly placed a thick blue folder on the table. Vanessa smirked. Oh, what is that? Your attempt to negotiate? I looked around the room. Every single person who had applauded my humiliation was staring at me. Some were smiling. Others already had their phones recording. Perfect. I took a slow breath. No. I smiled politely. Used good on technology. The room became silent. I opened the folder and pulled out several documents.
"My attorney advised me not to say much tonight."
Vanessa laughed. Then don't. But he also said I should let facts speak for themselves. I handed the first document to her. She glanced at it for barely 2 seconds before rolling her eyes.
"I don't care about your paperwork."
You should. She tossed it onto the table. Kyle laughed loudly. Come on, Ethan. Stop embarrassing yourself. I nodded. You're right. Then I looked toward Vanessa's attorney, who was sitting near the front. Would you mind reading the highlighted section out loud? The attorney frowned.
"I don't represent you." "I know. But you're still an officer of the court."
The room waited. Curiosity finally overcame hesitation. He picked up the document. His expression slowly changed. He adjusted his glasses. Then he read aloud. According to the prenuptial agreement signed before the marriage. Vanessa's smile disappeared. All investment accounts established before the marriage remain the sole property of Ethan Carter, regardless of future appreciation. The room went quiet. Her mother frowned. What investment accounts? I answered calmly.
Those nobody ever asked about.
Vanessa blinked.
What investment accounts?
I reached into the folder again.
This time, I placed another statement on the table.
Daniel had prepared everything perfectly. 12 years of investment records. Stock portfolios. Real estate funds. Dividend statements. Private equity holdings. Everything. Vanessa looked down. Her face lost all color. What? She whispered. Is this? I smiled.
The reason I never argued when you called me boring.
Kyle leaned over her shoulder. His eyes grew wide. No. He grabbed the statement. His mouth literally fell open. 26. He looked again. $1 million? The ballroom exploded with whispers.
What did he say?
26 million.
He's richer than she is.
How is that possible? Vanessa looked back and forth between me and the documents. No. Her voice cracked. No, this isn't real. It is. You never told me? You never asked.
Her father stood up so quickly, his chair almost fell over.
Ethan? I raised a hand. No. He froze. For years I worked overtime while all of you called me cheap. Nobody spoke. You mocked my old truck. Silence.
You laughed because I packed lunches instead of eating at expensive restaurants.
More silence.
You called me average because I invested instead of showing off.
I looked directly at Kyle. And every time you needed money. His head dropped. I helped. He couldn't even look me in the eyes. Vanessa suddenly grabbed my arm. Ethan? I gently pulled away. Don't. Her eyes filled with panic. You've been hiding this from me? No. I trusted you. I almost laughed.
You trusted my paycheck.
Several people gasped. She tried again. I didn't know. I know. I would have stayed. I looked at her for several seconds. Then I quietly asked, would you? She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Because we both knew the answer. No. She wouldn't have. Then I pulled one final envelope from my briefcase.
I actually signed something too.
I handed it to her. She opened it. Her hands began shaking. It wasn't a response to her divorce papers. It was my own filing. Already submitted. Already processed. Already finalized through the emergency provisions my attorney had prepared after learning she'd publicly announced her intention to remove me from our home. I filed first. She stared at me. When?
The day I overheard you celebrating my future.
Her entire body froze. You heard? I nodded. Every word. Kyle slowly backed away. Her mother covered her mouth. Her father looked like he'd aged 10 years.
I heard you say you stayed with me because I paid the bills.
Vanessa started crying. Real tears this time. I didn't mean it. You laughed. I was angry. You applauded. It wasn't. You planned it. She collapsed into a chair. I made a mistake. No. I shook my head. You made a choice. The ballroom was completely silent now. Every phone was still recording. Then came the biggest surprise of the night. Vanessa's attorney quietly cleared his throat. There is one additional matter. Everyone looked at him. He looked uncomfortable. Mrs. Carter. He paused. Your inheritance isn't entirely unrestricted. She looked up. What?
The estate includes several commercial properties.
I know.
They also carry approximately $9 million in debt.
Her eyes widened. What?
The tax obligations are substantial.
Her father frowned.
What are you talking about?
The attorney continued.
The estate appears valuable on paper.
He swallowed.
However, after taxes, legal fees, maintenance obligations, and outstanding loans,
He looked directly at Vanessa.
your liquid assets are significantly lower than expected. How much lower?
He hesitated.
You'll retain approximately $1.8 million.
The room erupted. What?
I thought she inherited $12 million.
Most of it's tied up?
That's unbelievable.
Vanessa looked completely stunned.
No,
She grabbed the paperwork. No, that's impossible.
I'm afraid it isn't.
And the properties?
80 immediate repairs.
And the businesses? Several are losing money.
She looked like someone had pulled the floor out from under her.
Then she looked at me. For the first time in our marriage, she looked afraid. Ethan? No. I need your help.
You fired me this morning.
Tears streamed down her face. I'm sorry.
I know. I was stupid. I know.
I love you. That one almost made me laugh. No. I smiled gently.
You love what you thought money could buy.
She stood and reached for me. I stepped back.
I've spent 8 years trying to earn love that should have been free.
Another tear rolled down her cheek. I'm begging you. I picked up my briefcase.
You already got everything you wanted.
What? The millions. She looked around helplessly.
They don't feel worth it.
I nodded. They never were.
As I turned toward the exit, someone began clapping.
An elderly woman sitting near the back. Then another person joined. Then another.
Within seconds, nearly the entire ballroom was applauding.
Not Vanessa. Me? People stood to their feet. One man shouted,
You deserved better.
Another added,
Good for you. Even relatives who had mocked me earlier couldn't hide their embarrassment.
Vanessa's parents stood there speechless.
Kyle quietly slipped out a side door before anyone could speak to him. I handed a paloming VIPY and watched.
3 months later, Karma had finished its work.
Kyle was being sued by several investors after another failed Cantonese business venture. Vanessa's father had to sell his vacation cabin to help cover legal expenses. Her mother, who once called me ordinary, tried calling me 6 different times.
I never answered. As for Vanessa, she sold the mansion she'd rushed to buy, the luxury SUV, the designer furniture, the expensive jewelry.
She even wrote me a 6-page letter apologizing for everything.
I never opened it.
Some chapters don't need to be reread to know how they end.
Meanwhile, I quietly resigned from my construction company, not because I had to, but because I finally had the freedom to choose. Daniel and I became business partners, investing in affordable housing projects for hardworking families who simply needed a chance. For the first time in my life, I wasn't working just to survive. I was building something that mattered.
A year later, I ran into one of Vanessa's cousins at a charity event.
She smiled awkwardly.
You know, your story still gets talked about at every family gathering.
Oh. She nodded. Whenever someone starts acting entitled, someone else says, Careful, don't pull a Vanessa. I couldn't help but laugh. As I walked to my car that evening, My phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. It read, "I finally understand what I lost. I hope someday you can forgive me." There was no name. There didn't need to be. I smiled, deleted the message without replying, and looked up at the sunset. People often think the best revenge is making someone suffer. They're wrong. The best revenge is becoming so happy, so successful, and so at peace that the people who underestimated you become nothing more than strangers in your rearview mirror. When Vanessa came home expecting to throw me out, I had simply smiled, handed her the keys, and said, "Good luck." Looking back now, those were the kindest 4 words I ever said to her. Because she got exactly what she thought she wanted. And I finally got what I deserved. A life without people who only loved me when they needed me.